Good afternoon. I'm Srila. That's
Hi,
Jesh.
I'm Jesh. Yeah.
Everybody's very worried that we're going to not stop talking. So we're just going to have this conversation telling you about what we do, largely what Jesh does, because I really think what Jesh is doing is a game changer. And really in this world where little ideas need to become big change, Jesh is onto a really big idea. I want to tell you how I met him. Not very long ago, I was taken to Pune to his workshop by a friend who I was meeting for something else. And she said, will you just come with me? I want to show you something. And I walked into this workshop, which was like nothing I'd ever seen. It was like walking into a beautiful, magical mystery land out in the open, in Pune, but almost jungle-like. And when I looked at what they were doing and what I was seeing there, I just said, you've got to do a show. And so in less than 2 months, Advanced Nature came into 47A with a show. And for me, that really was the most game-changing thing I'd seen in design. They were taking waste, the most ordinary waste available every day, everywhere, and turning it into things that you could walk on, you could put on walls, you could make pictures out of, just incredible. So, Jesh, tell them what you do.
Well, thank you, Srila. It was amazing actually to have you walk into our studio, because for the last 5 years we've just been sitting. As soon as COVID started, we found ourselves in this amazing workshop, which is a lot like a forest, and this amazing warehouse in there, and we've just been working with waste. And I am not a chemist, I'm not a scientist, I'm not even a product designer. And but I think the whole COVID idea, kind of when COVID started, it got me thinking. I have a 14-year-old and an 11-year-old today, and I was just thinking of what planet we're leaving behind for them. And at the same time, we had the migrant workers walking back. And so that just got me thinking about what is it that we're doing as a society, and particularly me, what is it that I could do? So somehow I got interested in waste. And I also got very interested in how we were constructing 300, 400, 500 years ago. And why were those buildings or those structures still intact? So what we did was create an art practice, and I was very sure that I wanted to create an art practice and not a real commercial venture that was purely for profit, because I already have done that with my VFX company, and I wanted something very different for this, and something where we worked as community, we worked as teams. And so I just grabbed a few of the guys who were walking back at that point, and I said, hey, I have an idea that I want to build and I want to create, and would you guys want to stay back and not go back to your villages? And many of them were very, very happy. And that's how the journey of Advanced Nature really began. And we began to look at our old construction methods using lime, which are still so strong today. So as we studied that ancient architectural practice that we had in India around lime, we realized that they weren't just using lime, but they had a very deep understanding of science, including adding things like fermented vegetables into lime, or molasses into lime, or bale fruit extract into lime, or urad dal into lime. And it just blew my mind as to like, what were they doing 300 years ago? What were they doing 400 years ago? And so I think what followed over the last 5 years was a deep research into waste, into cementitious materials, into hand-formed objects that we would love to live with.
I think that's really one of the key things, 5 years of research.
Yes.
Because one of the big things about handcraft or hand-done things is this thing in people's heads that, yeah, I know what it is, it's exotic, it's nice, but it's not really something that you can lean on for producing a solution that can be reproduced every day. Absolutely. And I think what's amazing about what they do at Advanced Nature is that from this waste and this hand-done stuff, what you're getting is something that is so deeply rooted in science that it can be changed, it can be redone time and time again,
Absolutely.
which makes it something far bigger than just an exotic piece of handmade beauty.
Absolutely. I think the thing that we wanted to tackle was scale. Not just scale of the waste, because we have so much waste in this country.
Tell them about what some of the waste you use is.
So some of the waste that we use are things like slag, which comes out of the mining industry. We've got fly ash that comes out of our coal power plants. We've got textile waste. We've got paper waste, construction waste. Of course, there's food waste and stuff, but we haven't really touched that. But
and it's quite amazing because you can actually buy this waste.
Yeah.
Buy it by the ton or buy in big packages, which I didn't know and which I found quite surprising.
I think 5 years ago, we couldn't source the waste. We had to go and figure out where the waste was. But as we did that, we realized that we could formulate materials which were stronger than our traditional concretes in an open air bamboo lab. And for me, that was the most interesting part of our discovery, was that why are we building such insanely large factories and insanely large investments into construction material when this could actually happen village by village or province, state by state, and we create such efficient movement of waste. So if you do come to our space right at the front, you will see how rudimentary this waste is. It's just basic, it's just powder. But the minute you start to add chemistry to it, it turns into the most incredible materials and also artisanal materials, because that was very important, was how do we create large-scale employment out of this whole idea, Srila.
And also what I found very interesting was when they were looking at this, to use this waste, you actually had to have what scientifically is called a binder that made it almost the same way you're taking dry atta and making it into a roti. And when they were looking for this science, it's not sexy enough for the cool scientists who are trying to reinvent the world to work on. So what do? They get the retired scientists who are like the geniuses of the world, rocket scientists, etc., to actually work on these solutions. And those are the guys who Advanced Nature's worked on to find the most perfect binders that take ash and ganna waste and textile waste and make it into something that could even support a pavement or a road.
Absolutely. And I think...
So it's about using resources, right?
Absolutely. And I think what, for us, what we realized while using waste was once we had made this binder, there was almost nothing that we couldn't put into it. So we removed the whole, a whole lot of processes around preparing the material for being used in any form of solution. So you look at all this stuff here, it's probably going to get dismantled, it's probably going to get cut, it's probably going to get shredded. But we could actually take all of this and next year build a similar system that is entirely made out of waste. And I think for us, the whole idea around waste is just potential. The minute you unlabel waste, the minute you unlabel anything, the minute I unlabel this as a wood or a veneer or whatever, we realize that we could just tap its potential for what it was rather than what we thought is the name that we had given to this particular material, you know. So I think predominantly our work is material development. Our work is to look and say, okay, the amount of waste that we have, and we're talking hundreds of millions of tons a year, how do we create large-scale employment out of that? I think that was also a very, very critical part because when you have thousands of workers walking back to Bihar or to UP or wherever, it just doesn't make sense in a country like India. And we wanted to put the jobs back in the village and not have them displaced, Srila.
I think the really critical thing, and I believe very strongly in that, is that you really need to make change if something has got to be effective. And that change has to come from the bottom up. It cannot be top down. And why do people become migrant workers? Why are they coming in and working on road braking? Or why do they at best become Uber drivers when they have a village that's beautiful, open, less polluted? I mean, they're doing that because they don't have a livelihood. And if you can produce a livelihood that they can do with skill, with dignity, make good money out of, why would they not want to live much better than living on a slum on the street or whatever? And this is what makes that change. This is then what would force governments to think that instead of doing what I'm doing with an urban slum, maybe if I just built a road connecting people, I have a much better environment. So this is really what I think of as little change that becomes a whole chain of change. And that's in a way what they're doing at Advanced Nature. It's what we try to do even when we're doing a Baro Market. We're talking with people who are just small time and with ideas, and you don't have to be big, but that little chain just goes on.
Absolutely. I think some of the things that we discovered is you could set up a unit that produces materials stronger than cement for less than ₹1 lakh or less than 2 lakhs of rupees. And now that's a game changer when you think about how expensive a modern cement factory is and how much pollution that causes. The other thing that we realized was that India has no unskilled labor. There is nobody who's not skilled. We have a zero interview process in the workshop. So people just show up and say, oh, I want to work. And we say, okay, join us. And the system is so simple. Our design system is so simple that if you can put gobar on a wall with your hands, you can design with our system. And that was I think that's one of the big joys, is that how simple manufacturing can be, and it needn't be these large factories that produce the same stuff every day. In our paradigm, in our design paradigm, it's not possible for us to make the same thing twice. It just comes out different each time. The material just comes out different. So
that's the material that is part of the art.
Yes.
When they're doing things that are for paver blocks, etc.
Yeah, exactly.
They're identical each
time.
time.
Absolutely. I think for us, I think it was such a great eye opener for us to come to Baro Market and 47A and really just meet the world for the first time in a city like Mumbai. And I'd love to invite all of you to come to a little space up front and have a look and have a look at what the talent that's available in this country. And I think that the amount of design that's inherent naturally in those that we called unskilled, it boggles my mind, because there is nothing they cannot do. Whether it's precision, they have it in their hands. Whether it's abstract, they have it in their hands. Whether you tell them to make something that's more related to temple art, for instance, they just go for it, and they just have no fear of their hands. And that connection is so easy, Whereas for me, as a city-bred, city-raised human being, I am scared of my hands. I'm scared to design. I'm scared to try something. I'm scared to try and bend something. But I think that
that's such a powerful thought, that it is in 1.5 billion people, that's 3 billion hands that have power.
Yeah.
And if you say even half of that or a tenth of that is able to make incredible change, that is the change that we're talking about.
See, these hands are solar powered. We talk about solar powered, but we are solar powered, and there is so much power in these hands that when you come and see what they do.
One of the interesting things is, in their factory, there is no use of heat, and that's amazing, because what that means is you can do this anywhere.
Yeah.
You don't need electricity. You don't need an oven. You don't need any heavy-duty machinery. You've got hands that are working, and you've got an environment you can do it in. If it's raining, you have to wait, because it may not dry. So you deal with the climate for sure, but you're able to set something up. I loved the idea. I loved what Jesh told us about factories, that we've spent a lifetime trying to be really cool about how we design factories, and how tall can they go, and how much glass can they have, and how can you make it look different. And what they did was just design a factory that was flat, like a village. It was open. It had place for you to hang around and have chai while you were still working. And keeping people in environments like that makes them so much more productive.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, initially when anybody comes to Advanced Nature or comes to work there, they're like, where are the walls? There are no walls in this unit, and there are mosquitoes when there are no walls, you know. So it takes a little bit of time for somebody to get used to it. But I think that's how we're supposed to live. Why are we supposed to live with these walls and live with these restrictions and live with these complex HR manuals? We just have a very simple system. They'll just send a message in the morning, because you know how they'll send a message in the morning, "Bhaiya, main aaj nahi aa raha. Or Bhaiya, main 3 hafte ke liye nahi aa raha." So you have to take all of that into account and design a system that works around all of that. And I think that I think for me the biggest revelations were, there is no unskilled human being in India. They just have they just have so much skill. Secondly, they are so ingenious. They are not scared to try anything. You tell them that, hey, I want to make a 50-foot mural, and they'll say, okay, bhaiya, we'll go do it. Or you tell them that, hey, I want to make a small lamp or whatever. They say, okay, bhaiya, I want to go do it. And their idea of engineering, it's so natural and it's so simple and it's so innocent in some ways. You know, they just go for it and they just build the most incredible stuff. So
Some of the things that I thought were really interesting was how, leave aside how it was made and who the people are, but this new substance, I don't know what to call it, because it's this thing that's being created, the kind of ways it can be used. One of the big, the big grouses I have about places you go out to in Bombay, restaurants, and more than anything else, is how you can never hear anybody. The sound design is so bad. And old-fashioned restaurants that don't exist anymore used to work with carpeting to sort that out. Or they'd have lots of very heavy curtains. Modern design doesn't have that. But what it has is that you're sitting 2 feet across from somebody and you can't hear them. And what they've done at Advanced Nature is, at our show at 47A, I discovered this and I thought it was amazing. They had all kinds of things that were on display like art pieces. They were these really cool looking art pieces. Some of them looked like Madonna's pointy bras from her concert. Some looked like little cups, all kinds of things. And they looked great, and a lot of people wanted them as pieces of art. But what they were sound bafflers. You could put them on the ceiling, you could put them on the side, you could mold them to become cupboards or bookshelves or anything. And that's what I find so fascinating, that it's a trigger to the imagination of anybody in design. How can you take that and make it into something that you're using in everyday architecture or in everyday design? It's just a new material, and it's a material that just makes so much sense for the world to use.
It does. And I think there'll be more such developments. It won't just be us, there'll be so many others who start to look at this. And the way I see it, I worked so extensively in AI. I do a lot of work in my company in AI. And I know that AI is gonna, it has an exponential growth.
Just to clarify, the AI, the company he's talking about is a different thing.
Yeah.
Jesh's other avatar is that he has a very successful animation company. So the AI is not part of this.
No, it's not part of this. But the more I spend time in Advanced Nature, the more I look at, the more I expose myself to the kind of setups that exist in the country based on hand manufacturing, I think there is one thing that we're missing. And I think sustainable manufacturing is going to become really, really big over the next 10 years or 15 years. And the world is going to look for sustainable manufacturing on a very, very large scale. And I think in India, it shouldn't just be the AI, it actually is the sustainable manufacturing story of this country that I think can really cross all oceans at this point, Srila. So I'm very hopeful that over the next 10 years, as we develop the science, others develop the science of the handmade, so to speak, because that's what we're doing, we're developing that science. I think the world is going to require a large amount of low carbon footprint, hand manufactured products.
I think the big idea there is to get rid of this belief in globalization and look at what every local space or
Yeah.
community has.
Yeah.
And that amalgamation or lineup of local is really the power.
Absolutely.
And that idea is so important, I think, in just anything that is to do with development. To
Absolutely.
understand how important it is to look local, to not kill a farmer by making him to grow acres and acres and acres of one thing when he's done lots of other things, and to eat locally, to, to just think local, so that it's even more exotic when you travel. You enjoy something else. Otherwise, it's all so
Absolutely.
homogeneous now that it kind of
Yeah.
kills the spirit.
And also, I think along with that, I think that there are multiple things. I think when you look at a farmer, how much, for all the rice they produce, look at the waste that they have, right? They have huge amounts of waste. So I think there is a large monetization model that's possible for the farmer around materials like ours. And I also think that Indian science, if we go back 300 years, if we go back 400 years, the kind of insight they had about building and how to cool spaces and how to kind of live with non-toxic, nothing toxic around us, because right now, whatever we're breathing is actually really, really toxic. Everything that's coming out of this vinyl is what we're inhaling. So I think India has the science for sustainability. India has the science for the future of sustainability. And I think the more that we're able to research that and the more that we look into it, I think India will produce technology that probably was inspired from what we did 300 years ago or 400 years ago, but it will be modern technology that look at lime. Lime as a material is absorbing carbon, right? So everything that we have in advanced nature that's made out of lime is always drinking in the carbon. It takes in the carbon every day. It's taking in. And so there is old technology that will now re-emerge as new technology, and like old fashion comes across as new fashion after a certain point of time,
For me, it all goes back to how do things happen? I think they happen most of all because you think they need to happen. So there needs to be an awareness, a responsibility that is not just to your own power, but a power or a selflessness about just what you're responsible for in the world, in an environment, in your social being, etc. And that's what makes ideas like this possible. Because when I remember the conversation with Jesh on how did you get into this, and he told me about just sitting and being grounded like all of us were at lockdown and watching this terrible spectacle of the migrants and thinking, why are they even called migrants? And why are they doing this? Why are they living like this? And what do they have to offer? And then going into, and I have boys, I have little boys, what are they going into? And what am I giving them? Questions like that, simple questions that I think all of us at some point are asking, but many of us just walk away from. They become agents of change when you think that you're responsible to have to answer them. And that's what I think we mean when one idea at a time is how change happens. And that idea is an idea anybody has,
Yes.
anywhere.
Anyone. I think that's it. I think we all have agency, we all can make a difference. And I think when you look at a country like India, which we all love, I'm a huge lover of this country. I think that I think we have to now use our imagination to take India to a level that we all love and we care for, and it also becomes a beacon of ideas, because I think India's next step should be the creative economy and really kind of taking that into our hands, because the kind of imagination and creativity, and our hands. I mean, why can't we be the largest supplier of sustainable goods on this planet? Because we've got the hands, and that's the only thing that's needed for sustainability to really to sell, to be honest, because machines can't make sustainability. It's never going to happen in that way, Thank you to Srila. Big thank you, Srila.
Thank you, Srila. Thank you, Jesh. Can we please have a big round of applause?